The letter in the attic that changed my family forever. I always thought my family was ordinary. Messy at times, yes, but ordinary. We had Sunday dinners, birthday cakes, awkward Christmas photos, and the occasional argument about chores or grades. Nothing that suggested anything extraordinary, or dark, lurking behind the scenes. But that illusion shattered the summer I turned 21, when I found the letter in the attic. It was July, blistering hot. My mom had asked me to bring down an old fan that was packed away. I climbed up the rickety wooden ladder, dust swirling in the air like ghosts of forgotten years. The attic was cramped and cluttered, filled with boxes of holiday decorations, yellowing newspapers, and toys I barely remembered playing with. I was pushing aside a stack of boxes when something caught my eye, a small wooden chest tucked behind a pile of winter coats. It didn't look like it had been touched in years. The lock on it was broken, and curiosity got the better of me. Inside, I found old photographs, faded Polaroids of people I didn't recognize. Some were smiling, some were serious, but what struck me was how many included my father when he was younger. And then, beneath the photos, I found the envelope. It was yellowed, the paper brittle with age, but my father's name was written clearly across the front in neat cursive handwriting I didn't recognize. The postmark was from 23 years ago, before I was born. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew that. But something inside me whispered that I had to. The letter was short, but the words burned into me like fire. If you're reading this, it means you've chosen to walk away from her life. But she deserves to know the truth one day. She's yours, and nothing can change that. I can't raise her alone. She'll ask about you. And when she does, what should I say? It was signed, Clara. I froze. She's yours. The words repeated over and over in my head. I didn't know a Clara. My mom's name was Susan. My father had never once mentioned another woman, let alone a child. I stuffed the letter back into the envelope, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night at dinner, I couldn't stop staring at my father. He was laughing at something my younger brother said, completely unaware that my world had shifted on its axis. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Dad," I blurted, "who's Clara?" The fork slipped from his hand and clattered against the plate. His face drained of color. My mom froze too, her eyes darting to him in panic. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked quietly. "In the attic," I said. "I found a letter." For a long moment, the table was silent except for the ticking of the kitchen clock. Then my father pushed back his chair and left the table without a word. That was the beginning of the unraveling. Over the next few days, my parents avoided me, whispering behind closed doors. My brother was confused, asking me what I had done, but I couldn't explain because I didn't understand myself. Finally, one night, my mom came into my room and sat on the edge of my bed. Her face looked older, wearier than I had ever seen it. "You weren't supposed to know," she said. "Not like this." "Know what?" I demanded. She took a deep breath. "Your father, he had a daughter before he met me. Before you were born. Her name is Anna. Her mother's name is Clara." My heart pounded. "A sister?" "I had a sister." "Where is she now?" I asked. Mom shook her head. "We don't know. Clara left town years ago. We don't even know if Anna knows about your father." I couldn't believe it. All my life, I thought I was the oldest. The first. But I wasn't. Somewhere out there, I had a sister. The next day, I confronted my father. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. "Because I made a mistake," he said. "I was young. Stupid. I thought walking away would make it easier for everyone." I didn't think, his voice cracked. I didn't think I'd spend the rest of my life regretting it. I didn't know whether to scream at him or hug him. All I knew was that I couldn't stop thinking about Anna. Who was she? Did she look like me? Did she even know she had a brother? I had to find her. I started searching online. Social media, old public records, anything I could get my hands on. It wasn't easy, there were dozens of Annas with Clara as a mother. But then, one night, I found her. Her name was Anna Clark. She lived in a small town 2 hours away. Her profile picture stopped me cold, because she looked exactly like me. Same eyes. Same smile. I messaged her. Hi. You don't know me, but I think we might be related. She didn't respond right away. For days, I checked my messages obsessively, heart pounding each time I saw a notification. Finally, she replied. What do you mean? I told her everything. About the letter. About my father. About how I had only just found out. Her response came quickly. I always knew, she wrote. Mom told me when I was 12. But he never came for me. He never wanted me. I stared at the screen, guilt burning in my chest. I don't think that's true, I typed. I think he was scared. He regrets it every day. She didn't reply. Weeks went by before I heard from her again. Then one afternoon, a message popped up. Do you want to meet? I couldn't type yes fast enough. We decided to meet at a diner halfway between our towns. When I walked in, I spotted her immediately. My sister. She looked just like her photos, but seeing her in person was surreal. We sat across from each other, silent at first, just staring. Then she said, "You look like him." I didn't know whether to smile or apologize. We talked for hours. About our childhoods, our parents, our lives. She told me about growing up without a father, about watching other kids at school with theirs, wondering why hers wasn't there. It broke me. When I asked if she wanted to meet him, she shook her head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I went home that night torn apart. My father was desperate to see her, to apologize, but Anna wasn't ready. And I couldn't blame her. For months, I went back and forth between them. My father writing letters he never sent, Anna asking questions she wasn't sure she wanted answers to. I was stuck in the middle of a family that was never supposed to exist, trying to stitch together something that had been ripped apart decades ago. And then, one evening, Anna messaged me again. I've decided, she wrote. I'll meet him. But only once. When I told my father, he broke down sobbing. The day of the meeting, I don't think I've ever seen him so nervous. His hands shook the whole drive. When we arrived at the cafe, Anna was already there. She looked calm, but her eyes were hard. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then my father said, Anna. I'm so sorry. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just listened. And in the end, she said, I don't know if I can forgive you. But at least now I understand. That was a year ago. Things are still complicated. Anna doesn't come to family dinners. She doesn't call him Dad. But sometimes, she'll text me. We'll meet for coffee. And slowly, carefully, she's becoming part of my life. I don't know if she'll ever fully forgive him. I don't know if our family will ever be whole. But I do know this, secrets don't stay buried forever. And sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free, it just changes everything you thought you knew. The diary my mother hid from everyone. When my mother passed away, grief hit me like a tidal wave. She had always been the backbone of our family, strong, stubborn, and fiercely protective. Losing her felt like losing the ground beneath my feet. After the funeral, my siblings and I began the painful process of sorting through her belongings. There were boxes of old photographs, stacks of birthday cards she'd kept, and shelves of books she loved. It was in her closet, buried beneath a pile of winter sweaters, that I found it. A leather-bound diary. It was worn, the edges frayed, the pages yellowing. My mom was always private, almost secretive about her past. She never spoke much about her own childhood or the years before she met my father. I had assumed she simply didn't like to dwell on it. But the diary suggested otherwise. I hesitated. Reading someone's private thoughts after they're gone felt like a violation. But something in me whispered that she had hidden this for a reason. And maybe, just maybe, she had left it behind for me to find. So, with trembling hands, I opened it. The first entry was dated 1979, when my mother was just 17. I feel trapped. No one understands. I wish I could run away, but where would I go? As I read, a portrait of a girl emerged, lonely, angry, yearning for freedom. It was hard to imagine my strong, confident mother as this frightened teenager. Then, a few entries later, I found a line that stopped me cold. I can't tell anyone. Not even my parents. If they knew I was pregnant, they'd disown me. My breath caught. Pregnant? At 17? My mother had never said anything about this. I read on, heart pounding. She described a boy named David, her first love, reckless and wild. They had dated in secret, sneaking out at night, meeting by the lake outside of town. And then she got pregnant. David says we'll figure it out, but I know him. He'll leave. I'm alone in this. The next few pages were heartbreaking. She wrote about hiding her pregnancy, wearing baggy clothes, making excuses. And then, one entry in particular. It's done. I signed the papers. They said it's for the best, that she'll have a better life this way. But my arms feel so empty. I don't know how to breathe. I dropped the diary, tears blurring my vision. She'll have a better life. My mother had given birth to a daughter. A sister I had never known existed. For days, I couldn't think about anything else. I wanted to tell my siblings, but some part of me wanted to keep it to myself, just a little longer. I needed to understand before I shattered their world too. So I kept reading. The diary continued into her 20s, then 30s. She wrote about meeting my father, about falling in love with him, about how safe he made her feel. But there were occasional entries that hinted at the pain she never let go of. Every birthday, I wonder where she is. Does she know I love her? Does she hate me for what I did? I look at my children and I see her face sometimes. Maybe it's my imagination, but I can't escape it. I realized then that my mother had carried this secret every single day of her life. I finally broke and told my older brother, Daniel. At first, he didn't believe me. No way, he said, shaking his head. Mom wouldn't keep something like that from us. So I showed him the diary. I watched his face pale as he read the entries, his lips trembling. When he finished, he closed the book and sat in silence for a long time. We have to find her, he finally said. It wasn't easy. We didn't even know her name. The adoption records were sealed. But we hired a private investigator, someone who specialized in cases like this. It took months, painful, agonizing months of waiting, but finally, we had a lead. Her name was Rachel. She was 38 years old. When I saw her picture for the first time, my heart skipped a beat. She looked like my mother. The same eyes, the same curve of her smile. We debated for days about whether to contact her. What if she didn't want to know? What if she resented our mother, resented us? But in the end, we decided we had to try. Daniel sent the first message. Hi Rachel, this may sound strange, but we think we might be related. Our mother's name was Susan. For a week, there was no reply. I thought my heart would explode from the waiting. Then, one evening, Rachel responded. I know who she is. I've always known. I stared at the words, my hands trembling. We arranged a call. When her face appeared on the screen, it felt like looking into a mirror warped by time. She told us her story. How she had grown up knowing she was adopted, how her adoptive parents were kind but distant. How she had always felt like something was missing. When she turned 18, she tried to find our mother. But the trail was cold. She thought Susan didn't want her. Hearing that shattered me. My mother had spent her whole life aching for Rachel, and Rachel had spent hers believing she wasn't wanted. We decided to meet in person. When Rachel walked into the cafe, I felt something shift in my chest. She wasn't just a stranger, she was family. My sister. We hugged, awkward at first, then fiercely, like we had been waiting for this moment all our lives. We talked for hours. About our mother, about our childhoods, about everything we had missed. At one point, Rachel pulled out a small box. Inside was a bracelet, old, silver, delicate. This was the only thing I had from her, she said softly. The adoption agency told me it came from my birth mother. I've kept it all these years. I recognized it instantly. I had seen it in old photos of my mother, worn on her wrist when she was young. I broke down crying. In the months that followed, Rachel slowly became part of our family. It wasn't always easy. There were awkward moments, misunderstandings, and the shadow of the years we had lost hung heavy over us. But we were trying. The hardest part was knowing my mother wasn't there to see it. She had carried her secret, her guilt, her love for Rachel, all the way to her grave. I wish she could have seen us together. I wish she could have known that, despite the pain, we found each other in the end. Sometimes, when we're all together, me, Daniel, our younger sister Lily, and Rachel, I feel her with us. I see her in Rachel's smile, in the way we laugh together, in the bond we're building from the broken pieces of her past. And I realize, family isn't just about the years you spend together. It's about the ties that can't be erased, even by secrets, even by time.